Welcome to the Live Bright Show, the pod for badass service-based entrepreneurs who are creating businesses and lives that are fun, successful, and free. And now your host, seven-figure business owner, coach, and founder of the Live Bright movement, here to help you own your potential, Moran.
I am so excited to welcome to the show Wendy York. She's just like one of the most fantastic people I know. First of all, she's a good friend of mine, which I'm so blessed and lucky to say, but she's had a long and varied career as an attorney. She started out as a defense attorney, and then she had her own private practice. And at some point she became a judge, and now she has a very, very successful mediation business. And Wendy is also a meditator and a yogi, and she's buff as hell, and she's just living this really thriving life. And I'm really excited to introduce you to her and get into what keeps her bright and thriving and learn from her. So welcome to the show, Wendy. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Molly. That was such a nice intro.
Well, it's easy. You make it easy, my friend. So how's your day going?
My day's going great.
So my friends, as you know, this is a new show, and this is one of the very first interviews I'm doing. So I'm really grateful to be doing it with someone as awesome as Wendy. So Wendy, let's just kind of get right into it. You've had this super varied career, and I feel like being an attorney is entrepreneurial in and of itself because of the different ways one could go, right? But you truly are an entrepreneur. So can you tell us, just to start out easy, like how you structure your life and work now with where you are right now with your mediation company?
All right. Well, now I feel like I'm in a very fortunate place. I can create my own schedule, which wasn't true when I started out. Now I pretty much am working about 3 days a week, and the lawyers come to me to try to settle their cases that have been going on sometimes for years. And we meet at 9, almost always by Zoom now. The people are in different rooms, and by the end of the day, most of the time, we're able to get the case settled.
Wow, that's awesome. So here you are. You've created this life where you're working 3 days a week, and I'm sure you're filling your time with all kinds of other really cool stuff, which we'll get into. What kind of led you to this place and are you kind of where you thought you would be at this point in your career?
We call that a compound question in law.
Sorry. You're not supposed to ask those in podcasts either. So anyway, but there we go.
In terms of how I got here, I was a trial lawyer and went to court and did all kinds of work in that way. I became a judge. And before that, I was primarily representing people who had been sexually abused by an institution or by an individual. And then the judiciary came up, and I thought it would be really a great public service. And in the course of that, I started mediating for my fellow judges, and I just really liked it. But I didn't think I'd end up as a mediator necessarily. Mediation is something that's only recently become a thing.
Okay, so how long have you had your mediation in practice?
20 years.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I did not realize it had been that long. Wow. Yeah. So that's actually kind of been the bulk of your career.
Well, I've been a lawyer for 42 years.
You wear it well. Wow, that's awesome.
Almost.
Wow. So what would you say, because you have had so many different hats or robes or whatever it might be, what's been if you can pick, I don't know, but your favorite part of your career, because it has been so diverse?
Yes. And I have a kind of a restless mind, which I used to think was a bad thing, but for everybody out there who has a restless mind, I think it's a good thing, because you can move to all different kinds of things. So I think there's been several. One is I loved doing criminal defense work. I loved the stories and the clients, and I loved being in court, and I loved being a judge for a while. But I think the job that really suits me is mediation, but it took me 22 years to figure that out.
Why do you think mediation really suits you? What about it?
When you're a judge, you're just kind of the referee, and with mediation, you are much more a player and trying to figure out through critical thinking, what one side is looking at wrong and the other side is looking at wrong. And it just challenges all your skills. You learn how to deal with bullies. You learn how to deal with people who have lost a child. It's just a very interesting job. And I have a different case every day.
That would be really interesting. So it's kind of constantly changing and evolving. That's like the dream, right? To like have that much change and curious, especially if you're a curious person.
Right.
Very
And I'm
cool.
sure a lot of the people listening, the entrepreneurs, have a different thing happening every day too.
Yeah, that's one thing I've always said when people ask me like, well, what do you like about owning a cleaning company? Because that's where I started. It's like, well, every day is different. I mean, I could do marketing, I could do leadership development. So the only limitations to me with owning my business are me, right? So how curious and interested in the business am I? So that sounds pretty similar. That's cool.
Yeah, there's a philosophy of Stoicism, and the Stoics say that whenever you have a challenge, the Stoic God is kind of watching how you're going to respond to it, you know, whoever that
and
is.
then tell you like that's the way, right? The obstacle is the way, right? I love the Stoics, but I don't think I'm smart enough for them most of the time. But I do love some of their philosophies. You mentioned, and I was actually going to bring it up, but I'm going to go there now. But you talked about dealing with bullies, and I was looking at your website and reading your blog, and there's some themes in there about bullying. And so actually I'd love to talk about that a little bit,
Sure.
because you're in a field where I'm sure it is rife with can be very aggressive people who would border or go to the bullying side of things. Can you talk about your experience with bullies a little bit?
Yeah, I think when I first started out, and I am in a primarily male-dominated field, there were a lot of people who didn't take me seriously and who also treated me terribly. I think that I learned early on to try my hardest not to take it personally, but to think of it strategically, like how can I use it? The fact that they didn't take me seriously was great because they didn't prepare. They didn't realize until they were in the midst of it that they were kind of screwed because they just hadn't thought of me as being able to do anything. But as I got more experience, I think that I learned how to deal with bullies in a different way. And the story on my blog is one that is an important one to me because I was on a board and the head of the institution was a bully to me when I disagreed with him. And I was going to do a very sort of conciliatory way of calling him out on it. And I talked to one of my friends, a male, who knew this gentleman, and he said, Wendy, grow some. He said, you need to write to him and say, you have plenty of volunteer opportunities. If you want a yes person on this board, then go find someone else. And I thought, oh my God, really? And he said, yeah, do it. So I did it. It was hard for me to do it that way. I did it, and it was absolutely the best approach. And so it was not really it wasn't overly emotional or anything. It was just very direct and assertive. And now when I'm in mediations, if somebody really starts to go off on me, I also sometimes use humor like, gosh, Joe, really thank you for telling me how you really feel, that kind of thing.
Right.
But bullies are really just like a bunch of inflatable air. And my experience has been that when you call them out, they kind of deflate. And I've had people in mediations, parties kind of go, well, all you want to do is settle this case. And I said, don't talk to me like that. I don't appreciate it. And when you do that, they kind of back off.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. So it sounds like that experience really informed you in a whole bunch of ways since
It
then.
really
right?
did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think as women or as young girls, especially, we're taught to communicate in a certain way. And it's to be pleasing and it's to
Nice.
nice. And we're taught to approach people from a feeling place rather than a factual place. Like the way you spoke to me made me feel, well,
Right.
You know, who wants to talk about that necessarily, right?
Bullies don't care how you feel.
Bullies don't care. And a lot of people in the professional world just want direct communication too.
Right.
And, you know, leave your feelings at home. I actually have a colleague who says that, leave your feelings at home, basically, which I don't necessarily subscribe to that fully, but I've gotten maybe in trouble, might be the right word, because of my assertive communication style at times. And then I try to change it to be more like this, and it doesn't feel like me, and it doesn't feel as genuine when I'm having to hedge or whatever. So good for you. Yeah, good for you.
But it is hard, and we have to kind of unlearn a lot of things we've learned.
A lot of socialization. Yeah.
And you know what's crazy is now I'm at a point, and you know, I realize I'm really lucky, but because I've been doing it a long time, but now I'm at the point where I would say about 5 years ago, I really stopped caring what the people I'm working with thought. And it increased my business.
So what do you think was happening then that you were able to do that? Because that's massive. That's huge. And it'd be great to take that right this second. I want that lesson. Tell me.
Oh, gosh. Well, part of it was that I felt like I was in a position where I could do it, and I really didn't care, because if I was going to turn somebody off by being direct and authentic, why would I want them in my life? But I recognize people starting out are in a little bit of a different situation, you know?
Right. Yeah, people starting out are in a different situation. So I guess what you're saying is you got to a place of you have your reputation, you felt secure enough to just be like, F it, I'm doing me, right?
And you know what, I'll tell you, I think being a woman is an advantage, because I felt like every day I had to be proving myself, which was kind of exhausting. But then after so many years of doing it, you have a lot more advantage over the person who was privileged and didn't have to do that every day.
Well, you're like putting the reps in, right? You were doing the work,
Exactly.
You're doing the preparation, which gives you the confidence and the knowledge, the knowingness to just be like, yeah, here I am, and I know what the hell I'm talking about.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's always good to be able to stand up on actual knowledge rather than just bluster or whatever,
Right.
you know?
Well, you know, I have this thing where you start out unconsciously incompetent. And that's when you're first starting out in a field and you don't know what you don't know. Then you go to consciously incompetent, and that's a good step. And then you go to consciously competent, and then finally unconsciously competent.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. And so as long as you can move out of the unconsciously incompetent phase, you're going to be okay.
Yeah. From step 1 to step 2, right? But then step 2 to step 3 could also be really hard, because you're like, oh shit, there's so much I don't know. And that could really shake a person, I would think, right?
Yes, it can really shake a person. But if people can look at that as a positive thing.
Right. And if you're a stoic, you would. And clearly you're a stoic. So I love it. You know, obviously, you know a lot about me and my career and my movement and whatever. And I get uncomfortable often. But part of why I get uncomfortable is because I keep challenging myself to the next level. And then I'm like, I am consciously incompetent right here. And I'm like, but it's okay. And then I get there. And so I think a lot of entrepreneurs definitely face that as well.
You are really good at that. And you take on more and more challenges all the time. I'm in awe of that.
Well, thank you. But I think it's a common thing. I meet so many business owners who they're like, do I belong here? And I'm like, hey, if you're there, you belong there. Good for you. Now just learn everything you can and go with it. Yeah. So I get that. I love that framework that you just set out.
If you are comfortable with discomfort, your life is way more interesting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I feel like there's a story there. Or many stories, or a lot of stories there. All right. Let's talk about your career a little bit more. Where have you been most challenged? How about that? Where have you been most challenged in your career? And compound question, how did you sort of move through that?
That's such a good question. I mean, I really was challenged quite a bit being a woman in law, honestly. And I think initially, when I would see my male colleagues with the same experience start getting accolades and things like that. And I didn't until later. I think I took it personally, and I kind of
Sure.
thought, what's wrong with me? They must be better than me. And it just sort of took a lot of years. And honestly, I would say, and I don't know how it is in your field, but in law, I feel like the whole movement that's been happening, Me Too and other movements, have made people much more aware of the structural benefits certain groups have. And I think that's been good in the sense that it doesn't affect your self-confidence as much. You kind of go, yeah, that's there.
That's there.
That's there. So that was a challenge, but I'll tell you, it took a lot of years, and I had a lot of years of feeling like, I needed to be better and work harder. In the long run, it probably helped me.
Yeah, but what a shit that you had to do that. But
I
yeah, I hear.
know.
Yeah.
It is a
Yeah.
shit.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's good. It's a good perspective that you have and you did it,
Yeah.
but it's just these structural inequities that do exist, and certainly in more fields than others. Well, and I feel like you've taken your experience and you've mentored a lot of women in the law,
Yes.
right? Will you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, that is one of my very favorite things to do. And I do get some calls from young men, but primarily not even just young women, but women who are struggling and asking me probably once a week. I'll get a call from someone asking me to talk with them about an issue they've had. And I would say primarily it is surrounding bullying and behavior that is really inappropriate. And you don't want to appear like you're not a team player and that kind of thing, because the bullying can happen outside of your organization or within your organization, you
Mhm.
know?
Jeez.
So I just really, really love that. And I love watching them get stronger,
Mhm.
and realize that what they're feeling is completely right. And
Mhm.
it doesn't mean that they're a bad person or weak or a wimp. But that's
Mhm.
how they'll kind of start out. So
Right.
yeah, I really
I
love
mean,
it.
and in that field, it's like it's all about shows of strength. So that's
Yeah.
awesome.
And you have to show your strength in a way that feels good for you. And I
Right.
think when I first started out, I was showing strength from sort of a traditional male perspective, and it didn't align with me very well. And so if you can find your strength and at the same time have it aligned with who you are, that's the ticket.
That is the ticket. I think so many people in a lot of fields, they're trying to fit into whatever the mold of success is in that field, right? So
So true.
it's so cool that you've figured it out, and it's awesome that you can help, people that are coming up or at different stages in their career. Like, okay, so who are you? How do you bring you to this situation and move forward and work
Exactly.
confidently in who you are? Because you're not doing anything wrong here, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want to ask you a little bit more about your mediation practice and making that change, because you were a public defender and then you had a private practice. I don't know, was that as a part of a group, or was that your own private
My
practice?
own my own firm.
Okay. So
Yeah.
from the get-go, so you've been doing it. Okay, so
Yeah.
talk to me about making that leap into being an entrepreneur, being a business owner. How did you decide to do that?
Well, I am a pretty independent soul, and I did not see myself in a big firm. I don't really like being told what to do. Um,
Common theme with business owners, right?
yeah, common theme. And I started out with a combined practice. One was criminal defense, and then the other was plaintiff civil work that was more getting into personal injury and that kind of thing. The criminal had a monthly contract amount that allowed me to pay my overhead. What was interesting is that when I started out, the best cases were car accident cases. They were easy at the time, they were easy. But what happened is that the guys on the golf course and the good old boys club and the advertisers were taking those cases. And so for somebody like me, I wasn't going to get those cases. And I ended up just kind of happening to attract cases involving sex abuse, which ultimately turned out to be better cases. But I guess my thought is that finding a niche, not being discouraged that you're not in the old niche, and kind of recognizing that the new niche might even be better. And that's what happened to me in my business.
Wow.
Mhm.
Okay. Tell us more about that. That niche that you're talking about, was this in the 90s, the early
Yes.
2000s? Okay, right?
Yeah, and it was involving cases against, for example, school districts for teacher on student molestation, cases against the churches for their priests, ministers, sexual
Mhm.
abuse. Even I also included premises liability if somebody was renting an apartment and it was not secure and a rapist came in and entered the apartment. Those kinds of cases that
Wow.
they were kind of new, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And I bet legally it was probably really exciting, like intellectually to be doing and righteous. Like it probably felt really good from a justice kind of standpoint. I
Yes,
would
and
think. I mean,
challenging.
and challenging and
Mm.
challenging. Was it hard because of the nature of the cases? And was it hard emotionally? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
How did you negotiate that?
Sometimes not very well.
Yeah, yeah. I bet. I bet. I mean, you're hearing horrible things.
You know, what's really a challenge is finding that line between still being empathetic with what people have gone through, but not take in so much that you become paralyzed and ineffective. Is
Yeah.
really, I mean, I think it's just a really challenging line. And I suspect that people in business, I mean, I know this happens, it's that way with employees, you know, in terms of being empathetic, but yet
Right.
also
Sure.
there's just a lot of negotiation and challenge both internally and externally.
Right. Oh, yeah, I'm sure. I know you now. And, you have all kinds of things that you do to take care of yourself and to stay healthy. You're very physically active and you have a huge meditation practice and you do all kinds of and breathing exercises and all kinds of stuff. Did some of this stuff start earlier in your career, or is this something you found later on in life?
Definitely later on. In fact, I tell everybody, you know, I really didn't do anything until my 50s. And so I have great knees, great, but you know, I have no injuries at all. So
Okay.
I'm telling you, I mean, for me, physicality is so important. And I'm just so glad that I'm doing it because I feel I'm 68 and I just feel awesome. I could walk 15 miles. If you said, let's go walk 15 miles, I'd be like, okay, cool.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you just did the Camino in Spain. I
Yeah.
mean, you are super fit. Yeah, that's awesome.
It is something that I was not, but after just a kind of consistent year in my 50s, I decided I was going to be consistent. And then after about a year of being consistent, I looked at myself and I'm like, God, I have muscles and, you know,
Yeah, very cool.
so
Yeah,
anybody can
it's
do it.
anybody. Yeah, I know it is really neat and it's so fun to see the physical transformation. And then I think there's also obviously so many mental and emotional benefits to
Totally.
fitness and health. I want to talk a little bit more about being a business owner since you basically have been like almost your entire career. What surprised you about being your own boss? Hey, friend, a quick break to ask you to please go to livebrightshow.com to be added to my email list. Here's the thing. I hate email, so I pretty much guarantee you're not going to receive anything excessive. Only important things like when I have new options in my coaching program, offer free challenges, new courses, release a new pod, or perhaps an occasional biz life tip. That's livebrightshow.com. Now back to the pod. If
Well,
anything.
the good part was being able to make my own decisions, the autonomy. Now,
Yeah.
I have one employee. She and I have worked together throughout the course of my career, about 25 years of my career. But I don't have a lot of I purposely didn't want that. That I think would be really challenging for me having employees, you know, and I'm not
Mm-hmm.
confident to really talk about that. The thing I like about owning a business is that you can decide how to build it. So when I first started out, I bought these little chocolates that said Happy Holidays, and I delivered probably just a tiny little box to like 1,000 attorneys. that just said, Happy Holidays, Wendy York. And the other thing is that for me anyway, what I found and what I always try to encourage people going into their own practice to do, but they don't always listen to me, is to get out of the office. Take people to lunch, take people to breakfast, go in my case, go to the courthouse and go talk to the judge's assistant, that kind of thing. Go take them candy or whatever. And that's how you slowly, at least in law, that's how you kind of build a business, is those relationships and doing a lot of things that you don't get money for, but you're
Right.
connecting.
Yes. No, I mean, I actually love that you said that, because I think especially now everyone thinks, oh, online business, and we can do so much without even talking to a person, right? I had to cancel a doctor's appointment tomorrow. I just did it all through the app and didn't speak
Right.
with anyone. And you can book a house cleaning company. I mean, you can do everything without even talking to a person. And
Right.
what does get lost is that connection. And
Completely.
I think people want that more and more. So that's how you've built your business over the years, but it doesn't go out of style. I don't think. I think it's like such a good lesson.
It's
And
how
so
you
smart.
distinguish yourself from all the people who are sitting in front of their computers.
Yes, you're totally right.
And the other thing that I do in my business is I always follow up. Like if I don't
Mhm.
settle a case, I call them. What can we do? Is there something I can do now? That kind of thing.
Right.
Because it
Right.
distinguishes yourself from the people who they get the money from the person and then they're
And they're
gone.
gone. Yeah, I think you told us because you hired us. We followed up too much. I was like, okay, sorry.
Finally, I'm like, okay.
But yeah, no, I think it's very true. It is about the relationships. So right now you're working 3 days a week. You're on Zoom. I know sometimes you're Zooming from Europe. You're all over the world. You're doing you, and you've worked hard to create this
Oh
awesome,
gosh, I
awesome
know. I
life.
can't believe it, really.
It's awesome. But think back during the times when you were in the hustle, in the grind, in the building, like you said, you put in a lot of hours. Probably seems like a whole other lifetime ago, actually. But if you think back on that, what did you do to maintain your sanity and your happiness and your joy? The person I know is very joyful and loving and out there. And I'm sure that that's who you've always been. But how did you maintain that in some of those harder times?
Oh, that's such a good question. Well, I had my son, and
Yeah.
so during those hard times, it was pretty much work and my son and whatever sleep I could get. But I will say it had its moments. The thing that I've tried to learn, and it's a constant practice for me, is to try to be in the moment I'm in. Because what I found a lot of times when I didn't have that, when I was at work, I thought I should be with Alex, my son, or my husband. Or when I was at home, I thought I should be at work. And so trying to enjoy the moment you're in. And it's a challenge for us. And I think it's a challenge for people in business because your mind is going a million miles an hour.
Mhm.
And, I guess that would be the best advice I have. But I will say I didn't necessarily do it very well. And that's one of the reasons I moved into becoming a judge, because the hours were more consistent and Alex was just little. And so instead of having to work nights and weekends and getting up at 5 in the morning to prepare for the day and all
Right.
that, it did help me. So I actually did switch jobs to try to help me do that a little bit better.
Interesting. I think the thing that a lot of people think is that there's some magical answer out there, right? And there's not.
Yeah.
But we could all learn from each other. It's like, right, presence. And I've had to learn that. And especially because I can work from anywhere. So then I do end up working everywhere. I'm
Yeah.
like, I've had to impose certain boundaries on myself that in a 9 to 5, you don't have to impose necessarily. So I love that about just being present with wherever you are and really mindful of that. It's easier said than done, but it's such a
It's
good
easier.
reminder.
Yeah. And, I think back on the all the times that I have worried about the past or the future. And I think if I could just not be doing that, think how I could maybe do my work in less time. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
We just spend a lot of time as
right.
humans doing that.
We do. We do. It seems like you've gotten pretty good at doing your work in less time and pretty efficiently
Yes,
now,
I
anyway. That's awesome. Is it all right if I ask you a few more questions? Do you have time
am.
for a couple more? Okay. So, as a business owner, there's always going to be a market for an attorney. It's a sure market, I would say. But how have you dealt with uncertainty, like economic uncertainty, like not maybe your own, I don't know, but from what's happening around us and people
Right.
tightening their belts or whatever. Has that entered into you as a business owner, and how have you navigated that?
Well, it's funny because when I got divorced, I was very worried. I was insistent that, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And, am I going to go broke? And I remember my therapist saying, well, okay, don't you think if you were, like wandering the streets without a house, your sister would take you in? That kind of a thing.
Right, right.
But, but, doing things builds confidence. And what I found for myself in my practice is that I would have slow periods. And what I would do is I would find some event to go to.
Huh.
And I wouldn't market myself at the event. I would just be present at the event and talk to people to make sure that I was still on the top of their mind.
Doing
Yeah.
relationship. Yeah.
Again, relationships. And here's what I really, really believe, no matter what business you're in, if every day you do the best possible job you can, you're going to be successful.
Yep. I think that's so true. That's so true. And I don't mean to simplify what you said there about relationships. I mean, it's a very specific strategy that you've had throughout your whole career, it sounds like to me. Like this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, smart.
Right.
Yeah, I love that.
Definitely.
Very neat. I was reading your blog and you were talking about
Okay.
lessons you learned the hard way.
Yes.
Have a lot of people read that blog?
I think so. I'm not as technologically savvy as you are, so I don't know.
That does not, I am sorry for you. Well, I read it and I was like, these are so good. And I'm not trying to put you on the spot because you probably wrote that a long time ago,
I did write it a long time ago.
Okay. All right. We can,
But I remember
you remember
one.
it?
Your
Okay.
reputation is everything.
So how'd you learn that one the hard way? Joan Jett, bad reputation.
Well, I watched people and, like when we were in law school, there was a guy who cheated at poker. He never ever really got over that. His reputation never.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Interesting.
so, being true to your word and honest. And I think once you don't do that even one time,
Yep.
word gets out.
Or does get out. I think that's absolutely right. Actually, no matter what field you're in, I think
Yeah.
that's so true.
Yeah.
Well, Wendy, this has been so fun. Thank you so
fun.
much. I've got some rapid fire questions that
Okay.
I'd love to ask just to wrap up for fun. And here's the rules of the game. If you don't want to answer, you just say skip.
Okay.
And then, okay. All right. So ready? What's your favorite pizza?
The fungi pizza.
Okay. Okay. Good mushroom pizza. All right.
Mushroom
What's
pizza.
your favorite movie or TV show?
Oh my gosh, trash. I love Slow Horses.
Okay, I haven't seen that one. All right, okay.
good.
Very good. What's your next big vacation you're gonna take?
I am doing a meditation workshop 1 week in Costa Rica in December.
Ooh, I like that. No mediation during the meditation week, right?
No.
Good. Good. All right. Would you rather spend a week in space, like exploring space in a rocket or whatever rocket ship, whatever they're called, or would you rather spend a week in a submarine exploring under the sea?
Definitely space, because I would think I would be claustrophobic in a submarine.
Okay. Me
Yeah.
too. Would you rather have a beard that you can't get rid of or have your hair grow 10 inches every night?
10 inches every night.
Okay, good. That's my favorite one. Okay. And would you say, just to close up, would you say that this freaking kick-ass life that you've got, that you've created, has been more by design and intention or luck where you've landed?
Oh, such a good question. I think a combination.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that not a fair answer?
It's a completely fair answer. Why do you think a combination?
Because I have designed it, but a lot of times things just came I kind of did a default thing a lot of times, like what came my way and just did that. And I feel so lucky. I mean, I'm a breast cancer, thyroid cancer survivor. I'm just so freaking lucky I'm still here.
That's awesome. Wendy, thank you for being here with me today. It's so
Thank
great
you
to have
for
you on the
having
Live
me,
Bright
Molly.
Show. Love you.
Okay.
And thank you again.
Bye-bye.
And that's it for today. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Live Bright Show. If you enjoyed this pod, please go to livebrightshow.com to be in the know for new program offerings and podcast releases. Molly has more awesome guests and content coming your way, so you're going to want to be on that list. Also, just because you're still listening, it would be incredible if you could go ahead and subscribe to this podcast and provide the show with a 5-star review. You know how they help. Go forth, have fun, and live bright, friends.